All right, Greg. So let's just go through a quick breakdown of what we found. So in some of the physical testing, we identified that the lower body strength really needed to improve, as well as the core as well. Specific to power, we found that rotating in your downswing, you're finding it difficult to find the best sort of methods of developing sort of lag. And if we looked at your ability to create lag turning as a lefty, as like a left-handed golfer, it was excellent. So normally we don't see that discrepancy from the downswing side being slower relative to your backswing rotation side or turning right, for example. As we just discussed about sequencing, we can sort of see that, for the most part, your sequencing is pretty good. So this was a really good swing of yours. We talked previously about the acceleration of the components. So the hips accelerated at a nice sort of steep, like a wave, right? Then the shoulders came second and the hands came third. Well, that sequencing of hip, shoulders, hands is perfect. But what we kind of get at sometimes is that sometimes for you is more of a mishit was that the two components, the hips and shoulders, more or less peaked at the exact same time relative to one another. So we had talked about, well, how do we just sort of generate more power, or how do we sort of just continue to improve all the stuff Mike is trying to have you working on, like getting the hips through, staying in better positions. And we would sort of say that a lot of it's probably going to come from developing more core control and really that hip strength. We know that the glutes need to be stronger, and if they're not strong enough, sometimes we sway and slide, or we find it difficult to really sort of like just lock those hips down and start with a great sequencing and continue to keep the right sequencing. So as you take the swing back, again, there's a component that probably the hands and shoulders could be more connected, and that's probably best served probably through just developing that core and hip strength that we talked about. In the other one, we've got a similar sort of pattern where the hands completely disconnect, and again, the hips are all right to begin with, but the shoulders are really slow. So it's almost like maybe Mike says every now and then that you tend to pick the club up. Those are that's as it relates to sequencing. We can see that sometimes the transition of how you start your downswing changes a little bit, but we know you're a good enough player that knows how to recover and peak often with the right sequencing. Positionally, most things looked pretty good. There's some numbers that are out, but one of the things we found, again, was the pelvic side bend. So sometimes at the top, the lead hip ended up getting too low relative to the trail hip, or if you were wearing a belt, the belt was pointing excessively towards the ground. Those were the big ones. Most of the other numbers look pretty good. There's, again, sometimes you could be in a little bit too much S posture, but that's probably fixed really quickly by just pinching those glutes. Hope that insight helps, and we'll be building a program, and we'll look forward to looking back at this and looking to see how these numbers change as your physical qualities start to change as well.